Welcome to DC Sports Talk Extra. I'm your host, Jack Morrison, and this is your home for all DC sports news, insights, and analysis. Today, we look at Jacory Croskey-Merritt starting off as one of the most exciting rookies in all of the NFL, and what it might mean going forward. After that, we'll look at some predictions for the Capitals and Wizards as they start their season soon, and we round it out with an all-time basketball draft with a catch against ChatGPT. Let's get it going. All right, so let's look at Jacory Croskey-Merritt here. Had a great week one and had a bit of a lackluster week two, but we'll see him bounce back, and I know this, and here's why. First, a little context: Jacory Croskey-Merritt, 7th-round pick in 2025, 245th overall out of Arizona, after stints at Alabama State and at New Mexico, selected by the Commanders. Did have a disrupted 2024 season over there because of eligibility issues, which limited his exposure, but he was able to see some flashes of big playability in prior years, especially with the New Mexico in the 2023 season, having 1,190 rushing yards and 17 rushing touchdowns. Preseason and training camp is where he really got some attention. Was listed originally at 5th on the depth chart behind Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, and Chris Rodriguez Jr. But then, of course, we had the trade of Brian Robinson over to the San Francisco 49ers, which moved Croskey-Merritt way up on that depth chart and got a lot of first-team snaps in training camp and in the preseason. And eventually leading to him getting a lot of snaps in week one. And in that first regular season game, we really saw a breakout. He rushed 10 times for 82 yards and a touchdown. And that's 82 yards. That's more. Ashton Jeanty had 27. Let's just put that into perspective. Ashton Jeanty was selected, sixth overall? And he... that guy, that's one guy who was supposed to be a generational talent, a Heisman favorite, and now you have this guy, Croskey-Merritt, who takes all the way, way past that, 82 yards. So Jacory Croskey-Merritt goes by Bill. Interesting story, actually, how he got that. So when he was a child, he was bald, and his grandmother compared him to a cartoon character who was bald, named Bill. And so he said, well, that's easier to say than Jacory, and it stuck with him. So he goes by Bill. And in that outing, Bill went 8.2 yards per carry, that's just absolutely huge. For a rookie, I mean, especially one drafted so late and initially that low in the running back rotation, that burst is a huge deal. I mean, obviously, Jeanty had more snaps, more carries, but did not come anywhere close to 8.2 yards per carry. That's unreal. I mean, we saw historic numbers from Tony Pollard back with the Cowboys when Elliott was hurt, when Ezekiel Elliott, before he was traded. When he was with the Cowboys, averaged 6.2 yards per carry, which was unreal. And now, but this today, yeah, sure, it's only one game, but that was only Pollard's stats. That was only up until week 6 that he averaged 6.2 yards, as well as a lot of yards after contact, particularly for Croskey-Merritt. That's what we saw out of Pollard, and it's what we're going to continue to see from Croskey-Merritt. He had some big moments. He scored on a 6-yard touchdown run in the second quarter, later broke off for a 42-yard run from nearly back in the end zone in the fourth quarter to help seal things in his debut against the New York Giants. That led the team in rushing yards and outrushing those veteran backs, despite not being anywhere near expected to dominate the workload in week one. He wasn't really a receiving back specialist in college. He had one target. That pass was deflected away. But the fact that he wasn't targeted too much, but it shows what the Commanders are going to be able to use him for. They've got all those weapons, and as I talked about last week, the Commanders have so many options with this offense, and I think Croskey-Merritt only adds to that. And if he can continue to do that, with receptions, If he can build on that, he will definitely provide even more. Um, Week 2 in the loss against Green Bay at Lambeau Field, he was less explosive in terms of counting stats, but context is important. Croskey-Merritt had 4 carries for 17 yards, no receptions, um, and the Commanders they struggled early in that game. They falling behind early, which means fewer rushing opportunities, and their run game as a whole was less effective. Um, and in week 2, in that same game, obviously the longtime veteran Austin Ekeler tore his Achilles, and that's going to change the outlook for the backfield significantly. Even though Croskey-Merritt, he didn't explode in week 2, but that injury to Ekeler, who again was first on that depth chart after the Robinson trade, that's going to mean much more opportunity ahead for Croskey-Merritt. So through 2 games, his totals are 14 carries, 99 rushing yards, and a touchdown that works out to about 7.1 yards per carry. Again, that's very good, even after a pretty off day on Thursday Night Football. He's had a few targets, no catches yet, but he has played about 35% of offensive snaps, which is very notable for a rookie that's that low on the depth chart. And he definitely has that explosive big play ability that's been missing from a Washington running back in a while. When we had Robinson, it was more of he would just continue to fight, but we really didn't see a lot of big plays for him. Only had one career game where he eclipsed 100 rushing yards, and in Croskey-Merritt's first he had 82. That says a lot, especially again 35.8% of offensive snaps, and being that low on the depth chart, selected 245th overall. That's very that's very good for a rookie. It's going to continue to grow on that. And those explosive plays again, that 42-yard run, he was breaking tackles, a stiff-armed a man, and he was able to break away, and he was among the league leaders for rookies and among all backs in yards per carry. Success rate and big run percentage. And what can we make of all of this? There's several things to highlight. Efficiency and big play upside, right? He doesn't need a ton of volume to make an impact. His ability to break a long run or change momentum with a single carry, that's a very valuable asset to have. We see that with guys like Saquon Barkley, obviously breaking out for very long distance runs last year. And that, I mean, obviously, what kind of season did he have? So I think that's only going to improve for Croskey-Merritt. And with that Ekeler injury, again, as I said, Croskey-Merritt is going to have lots more carrying opportunities. He's positioned to see a lot more snaps. And even if he was initially last on that depth chart, that week 1 showing and week 2 circumstances put him in a spot to take on much more of those early down or between the tackles workload. Now, he has shown almost nothing yet as a receiver, which limits his value in the passing downs. So the team might deploy him primarily as a traditional ground and power or early down back until he shows more skill in catching or blocking out of the backfield. Which is part of the reason why I think he fell in the draft. I mean, he was not Ashton Jeanty, he was not Omarion Hampton, but I think that receiving back is something that we're seeing become increasingly valuable in today's football, and I don't think he's shown that he can quite do that yet. But as I said earlier about against Green Bay, that game script, it really matters. And when Washington is ahead, as we saw against New York, he got chances, and he will continue to get those chances. When they're behind, more passing and committee usage might dampen that output. Even for fantasy football, such a high upside pick right now, even with a modest week 2, the volume, possibility, efficiency, and that injury to Ekeler make him someone to watch. So if you happen to be in a fantasy football league, I would highly recommend picking him up. So here are some things I monitor over in coming weeks. Does that snap share how much is it just going to increase? Just how much? Because again, 35.8% of snaps, and as a rookie, fourth on the depth chart. That's unreal. Um, and if that base amount of snaps creeps up, that's a very strong signal that this team trusts him, and I think they have very good reasons for that. Um, Dan Quinn, we can see how he's able to be used in short or goal line situations. Um, not an incredibly strong guy, but he just keeps on fighting and is able to break away for long runs like that. But the short runs, that might be interesting. Those 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, very short opportunities. That's going to create a lot of options. And as Tony Romo likes to say, if you have second and short, that gives you just so many options. And I think Croskey-Merritt is very viable at that. We saw a lot of second and short opportunities in week 1. And Croskey-Merritt, obviously, especially in the second half, the Giants were able to come and try and regulate him. But then that creates a lot of passing options and running options for Jaden Daniels. That involvement in the passing game, again, he's got to really start bringing in some passes. Obviously, week 1, only 1 target, and it was deflected away. But week 2, he had a few targets, just nothing came of any of them. And I think if he's able to start becoming a bit more of a receiving back, that creates just even more weapons. The more weapons you have, then it's just there's so much danger that the Washington offense can create. The durability and health, again, there's been no health scares for him at all, or of any of the other running backs besides Eckler. But him and the others in the backfield, they've got options again. So that's definitely going to affect his snap share, but it'll be interesting to watch if Rodriguez and those other guys, Rodriguez, McNichols, if they get more snaps relative to what Croskey-Merritt would have gotten had Eckler not been injured. Those matchups against weaker run defenses, I mean, week 1, Giants, they've got a very good run defense, so there's no denying that. And of course, with the Micah Parsons-led Packers defense, there's nothing much you can do about that. But I think more use for him against those weaker run defenses is definitely going to help him in his snap share. And it's also going to be interesting how he handles those negative game scripts if Washington falls behind again, like in week 1, or in week 2, sorry, at Lambeau. The plan was to get out early and to get going quickly, and that's not what they were able to do. And of course, you're going to have to climb out of the hole with passing, and a rookie in only his second career game, that's probably not a good idea to keep trying to just run the ball. The ground and pound offense, you can't do that against the Packers at home. With the Packers at home, you can't do that. Down 2 scores in the second quarter, that's just not something that can happen. But the bottom line is that Bill Croskey-Merritt is no longer a sleeper or a name just to keep an eye on. After 2 games, we're seeing efficiency and opportunity come together in a way that suggests real potential. And if he keeps getting chances, he can round out those aspects of his game where he's still quiet. And if he can, this rookie can turn into one of the most pleasant surprises in the 2025 backfield group. Obviously, it was led by, Ashton Ginty and Omarion Hampton, both guys I mentioned earlier. But Croskey-Merritt, one of the unsung heroes of this draft class, and I'm really looking forward to what he can do. All right, now let's switch gears over to hockey for a quick look on the Washington Capitals. Obviously, both the NHL and the NBA season starting soon after long-awaited off seasons with a lot of moves all over the league. But the Capitals still in a very interesting spot, something that I would love to watch. You've got Ovechkin, obviously, the captain. He's going to continue doing what he does best. Um, and he'll remain the headline every night that he's on the ice, and that as he keeps separating away that goals record. But beyond that, this team is trying to retool still while staying competitive. So here's my prediction. The Capitals will be in the playoff hunt, but fighting for a wild card spot rather than a top three Metro finish. The goaltending tandem, that's going to need to be sharp. We saw hints of it last year. Logan Thompson having a bit of a breakout year. Charlie Lindgren faltered a bit in the first half. But as he remains on that Team USA roster, the more reps that Lindgren can get after a few of those slip ups, he can definitely be one of the most solid backups in the league. And I'm looking forward to how that goalie tandem will really develop this year. It's going to need to be sharp, but then you've got the younger core. Those guys, Connor McMichael, Hendrix Lapierre, and Ilya Protas coming up through the AHL and the Hershey Bears. Those guys are really going to have to take a step forward. They won't be true cup contenders yet, but they're going to be scrappy and hanging around the playoff bubble. You took on the Carolina Hurricanes last year in the playoffs. That's not something that's going to end very well for you, obviously, with the Canes advancing to the conference championship. But the Capitals, in the Metropolitan Division, they're going to be able to squeeze something out of there. Winnipeg Jets, it's a make or break season for them. But I think the Metro Division, that's going to be probably the most interesting one to watch this year. McMichael, Protas, those guys, the Protas brothers, Alexei and Ilya Protas, those guys, that offense, I love the way that the offense is going to shape up out here in Washington. Along with this very underrated defensive core. You've got, Brandon Duhaime, Martin Fehervary, and a guy I really like, Erasmus Sandin, Matt Roy, who I saw score his first Capitals goal live. Very fun to watch and a great dual threat. But of course, my favorite Washington defender, Jakob Chychrun. You almost wouldn't know that he is a defender the way that he plays, because he's such a dual threat, loves playing far out on the wings, not just on the point, but he'll play in the face-off circles. And we saw him as a kind of another weapon for Ovechkin, just as a secondary option right there in the paint. Because obviously, you've got Alex Ovechkin, he's going to draw 99% of that defense's attention. And if you have Chychrun, who can do so much on that defense, that's definitely going to draw a lot of attention away from Ovechkin. And we obviously, we know what he can do with an open shot. There's no questioning that he's got the greatest shot in the history of the league. And Chychrun, more than anything, he serves as a distraction for other teams' defenses. And the fact that he can do so much on both sides of the puck, that's going to be really, really valuable going forward in Washington. But again, going to be a scrappy team and hanging around that playoff bubble. We'll see how it's going to be interesting against the Jets. Definitely a make-or-break season for them again. Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele, they're desperate to advance in this playoff. And I mean, Hellebuck, one of the best goalies in the league, obviously Hart and Vezina winner. But we'll see. That Metropolitan Division is going to be something to watch. Moving on to basketball. As for the Washington Wizards, it's a very different story. This team, obviously, clearly rebuilding, leaning on those younger players like Bilal Coulibaly, and whatever development they can squeeze. I would not expect a playoff run this year, and they're going to finish towards that bottom of the Eastern Conference. But that is by design. The real win is going to be seeing growth in that young core and establishing identity under this new front office and putting themselves in position for another high draft pick. The way I would put it, it's a season of patience, not results. It is a season of development and not of like absolutely going all out for the NBA Finals. This is a season where the Wizards have a plan, and when they can execute this plan, and I think they're doing a perfect job. You've got the veterans that are helping these guys develop, and I really like the direction that the Wizards are heading in. And it's a very difficult thing for a fan base to have, is patience. But this is a season that's going to take a lot of patience, but it's going to pay off at some point. And the Wizards, they're staying focused on this long game in the rebuild, but the main concern, of course, last year was that offense. And I think they've already done a lot to help that with Trey Johnson, a guy who I love, going 6th overall. I had the opportunity to speak in July with Glenn Consor of the Wizards, the TV and radio analyst, but Mr. Consor said, there were the two best scorers in that draft, and two best productive offensive players were, Johnson and Cooper Flagg, and the two best sharpshooters, Trey Johnson and Con Knippel. And the fact that Johnson is able to do so much offensively is going to really help, especially when you've got a combo of big guys down low that can produce so much. With obviously Alex Sarr, a guy who I'm so excited about, even after a bit of a down year last year, he's going to be great. There's so much optimism for the Washington Wizards right now, and a lot of times with teams rebuilding, it's almost as if they're lost and they don't have a plan. I can tell you now with confidence that the Washington Wizards have a plan. They're working on it and they're executing it, and within a few years, this team is going to be great. That's where we stand. Croskey-Merritt making an early splash for the Commanders, the Capitals as a wild card battle, and the Wizards staying focused on their long game. But now we turn to a bit of a fun part. I'm going to do an all-time NBA starting 5 draft against ChatGPT. So we're going to see how this works. But here's the thing. ChatGPT gets to pick first of all 5 of their picks, because I might know a bit better than ChatGPT. We'll see. Here we go. So to close out today, starting 5 NBA draft. Me, ChatGPT, and they have the first pick. All right. Okay, well, no surprises here. Michael Jordan going first overall to ChatGPT is starting at the shooting guard. Here's the explanation. I'm starting with Michael Jordan. 6 rings, 6 finals MVPs, the ultimate competitor. You get scoring, defense, and the kind of leadership you want to build a franchise around. If you got the first pick in an all-time draft, you're probably going with MJ. So ChatGPT goes with Michael Jordan, 1 overall. But again, since it's ChatGPT, it gets to pick its next 5. I don't know if that was a good idea. I might be definitely screwed on this draft, but we'll see. We'll see what ChatGPT thinks. All right. Next pick. All right, here we go. It says, next, I'm going with LeBron James at the power forward position or small forward. The versatility is just unmatched. He can run point, defend multiple positions, score inside, stretch the floor, and elevate teammates. Pairing LeBron's all-around game with Jordan's killer instinct already gives me one of the most dominant wings tandems possible. All right. I mean, I get that. Obviously, it makes sense. If you're gonna take LeBron James, but I mean, it just depends on where you're gonna play him, because now you've got to take. You still don't have a point guard, and that's gonna be something valuable. But again, I mean, you can pick from anybody. I'm not picking yet. So we'll see. The interesting thought process from ChatGPT so far. All right. Next pick from ChatGPT is Shaquille O'Neal. All right, that makes sense. That's a guy who I wanted. But all right, Shaquille O'Neal, the center. Um, Here's what ChatGPT says. For my big man, I'm locking down Shaq. At his peak, he was unstoppable. Sheer size, strength, and dominance in the paint. He changes the entire geometry of the game, forces double teams, and brings a level of physical intimidation that nobody else matches. And with Jordan and LeBron feeding him, that is scary. Okay, again, that makes sense. That's a good pick. It's somebody who I definitely wanted. I love the big guys, but like Shaq, I love what he can do inside the paint. I don't need a Joel Embiid. I don't need a guy who can take 3-pointers as a center. If I'm taking a center, I want it to be somebody like Shaq who can simply just dominate inside. ChatGPT, who are they going to take next? Let's see. I guess I could take Tim Duncan now. I don't know. We'll see what ChatGPT does. All right, fourth pick. Here's what ChatGPT says. At point guard, I'll take Magic Johnson, the best floor general ever, 6'9", revolutionizing passing vision and the ability to the ability to elevate everyone around him. With scores like MJ and LeBron and Shaq already in place, Magic can orchestrate this offense and make sure everybody gets the ball in their sweet spots. It makes sense. I'm just glad they didn't pick Tim Duncan yet. All right. Next pick. Okay. Fifth pick, Tim Duncan, the power forward. Okay. Well, I honestly don't know what I'm going to do now. Here's what ChatGPT says. And to round it out, I'm going with Tim Duncan, fundamentally flawless, 5-time champion, and one of the best defenders of all time at his position. He gives me rim protection, consistency, leadership, and no ego. Perfect glue guy for this team of legends. So ChatGPT's all-time starting five is Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, and Shaquille O'Neal. ChatGPT says, I've got passing, scoring, size, defense, versatility, and championship DNA at every spot. This squad can run in transition, dominate in the half court, lock you down defensively, and win in any era of basketball. So let's see what I can do. I mean, that's a strong lineup the ChatGPT is able to put together. But let's see. I have an idea of what I'm gonna do. I don't know if it can compare against MJ and Shaq and Tim Duncan, but we'll see. All right, first I'll take Larry Bird at the small forward or power forward. Really, you can play him wherever. One of the greatest shooters and competitors of all time, brings elite scoring, deep and mid-range, and a very underrated passer and rebounder, I think, and his clutch factor, of course. I mean, and free throws, legendary. He's the guy I would want with the ball late in a tight game if I can't have Michael Jordan. So yeah, that's. I guess I could put him at power forward because I have an idea of a sneaky pick for the small forward. But next, I think this one's going to be a bit obvious, but I'm going shooting guard Kobe Bryant. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba, killer mentality, 5 championships. He can score from anywhere on the floor, and he brings elite perimeter defense, which I'm going to need against that Jordan pick. Kobe's one of those players. He can rise to any challenge, and he would love to go toe to toe with Michael Jordan. Okay. Well, an interesting start. Let's see. Who do I go with next? I'm gonna take. I'm gonna take my sneaky pick, small forward, and that's gonna be Julius Erving. Dr. J. I mean, he's the bridge between old school and modern basketball. He's a high flying athlete. He could dominate the rim before it was common, and he gives me flash, flair, and scoring versatility. With Larry Bird spacing out that floor and Kobe there as well, just providing so many options. Dr. J can slash attack the basket relentlessly. And that's something, against a defense as good with Shaq and MJ. Like, I'm gonna need somebody that can do things that in ways that nobody else can, and that's gonna be Julius Erving for sure. All right, well, I mean, point guard, I did want Magic, but I'm gonna take Stephen Curry. Um, the greatest shooter in NBA history, hands down. His range breaks defenses. The off-ball movement opens up the floor for everybody and changes the game. He changed how the game was played in its entirety. He changed basketball in a way that nobody else had done it before. And against that lineup that's led by Magic Johnson, Curry will be able to force mismatches with spacing and with speed. I said I wanted a good big guy, and I honestly don't know. I mean, I wanted Shaq. I mean, and I wanted Tim Duncan, but I don't know who else I go with. Elijah Wan? No. I mean, all right. I think I have an idea. I'm gonna go anchoring the team in the middle. I'm gonna go with Wilt Chamberlain, guy who scored 100 points in a game, led the league in assists as a center one season, um, and he dominated physically in a way that nobody else did in that era. With Wilt the stilt inside and Steph outside, that's a perfect balance of power and finesse. So my all-time starting five: point guard Stephen Curry, shooting guard Kobe Bryant. The forwards are Julius Erving and Larry Bird, and with Wilt Chamberlain rounding out the floor at the center. That squad, wow, that's got shooting, athleticism, defense, scoring firepower from every spot. Wilt Chamberlain patrolling the paint, Steph stretching the floor, Bird and Dr. J hitting you from the wings, Kobe bringing the Mamba mentality. ChatGPT's team is loaded, but I like these chances. My five can run with paint, shoot the lights out, and attack mismatches all game long. It's going to be a true mix of old school dominance and modern spacing. So go ahead and vote down in the poll. Once you're down in the poll, whose team do you think is better? Once again, ChatGPT's starting five is Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, and Shaquille O'Neal. And I've got Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant, Julius Erving, Larry Bird, and Wilt Chamberlain. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is DC Sports Talk Extra. I'm Jack Morrison. And Jacory Croskey-Merritt, again, making an early splash for the Commanders. Capitals get a battle for a wild card spot. The Wizards focusing on their long game. And ChatGPT, I personally think ChatGPT's team is much better. I mean, Michael Jordan. Do I need to say anything else? But thank you so much for tuning in. Come back next week, every Sunday. New episodes every Sunday. This is DC Sports Talk Extra. I'm Jack Morrison. Thank you so much.